So now that you're in middle school now, you've probably been thinking, have you ever wondered how genetics actually works? Why are you a boy or why are you a girl? Or why do blood relatives look like each other? Well, today you're going to find out. Cells are about 1/10 the length of a human hair, yet they're the building block of life. Let's take a look inside of the nucleus. Genetics primarily decide what we look like and how our body functions. You might have heard your parents say, you look like your mother, or you got your mother's hair. Well, this is caused by a cool phenomenon called dominant and recessive genes. Parents pass down one of each gene to give to the offspring. Each gene has a 50% chance of being passed down. This is because of a cool process called Meiosis where parents pass down 50% of their genes. But we'll get back to that later. You can actually simulate this very easily by drawing a square, drawing the genes up and down, and drawing the direction it goes in. So this is what it looks like when you follow these instructions. The reason why it's a capital B is it overshadows the lowercase b. Each dominant and recessive trait is called an allele. You need to have 2 recessive alleles for blue eyes, but only 1 dominant allele for brown eyes. You can't use Punnett squares to predict all traits though, such as height, because many people are different heights. This is because the more genes you begin to add, the more possibilities there are. This is called polygenic traits, or multiple gene traits. Let's use a smaller polygenic Punnett square. If you calculate the ratios between dominant recessive, recessive dominant, and recessive recessive, you see there are 4 possibilities highlighted by 4 different colors, making a ratio 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. And the reason why the pink, or the dominants, are more prevalent is because dominants take over recessive genes. My favorite thing about genetics is incomplete dominance. If you breed a flower with 2 dominant traits and another flower with 2 recessive traits, the offspring will have 1 dominant and 1 recessive trait. But because the dominant red gene doesn't take over the recessive white gene, the colors mix, creating a beautiful pink flower. If you then breed these 2 pink flowers, you have a 25% chance of a red flower, a 25% chance of a white flower, and a 50% chance of a pink flower. This is actually a phenomenon you might see in your local flower store, for example. Now back to the question earlier. Have you ever wondered why you're a boy or why you're a girl? Now there's actually a very simple answer to this. All of our DNA is stored within 23 pairs of chromosomes. But if you look closely right here, you can either have an X or Y chromosome or 2 X chromosomes. If you have 2 X chromosomes, you're a female, and if you have an X and Y chromosome, you're a male. This is the only genetic difference between men and women. Every chromosome holds 1 of each allele. One may hold a dominant allele, and one may hold a recessive allele. Because men only have 1 X chromosome to decide dominant or recessive genes, men are more likely to have recessive genes on the X chromosome than females, because females have 2 genes, and they have a higher chance that one of the chromosomes is dominant. Well, now you know a lot about traits and alleles, but how are they actually expressed? Let's unwrap DNA real quick. DNA is made up of 4 amino acids. Adenine always connects with thymine, and guanine always connects to cytosine. The order of these acids tell your body what to do. The DNA is split apart, and another kind of DNA called RNA finds the opposite pairs of this strand of DNA in groups of 3. But instead of the opposite pair being thymine with adenine, it's now adenine with uracil. Translating these 3 new letters into the sequence, it creates a new type of protein. Now, some genes cause negative effects to our body, but not many people have them. This is because everyone who has the disease will die before they reproduce. In this hand-drawn simulation, you can see the people who are infected have a 40% mortality rate before they have a chance to reproduce. This is why almost all the genes in our body are beneficial, because our ancestors with bad traits didn't have the chance to reproduce. Genetic disorders are usually recessive, so you can use pedigrees to determine the probability of your offspring having a genetic disorder if it runs in your family. All of this happens in 1 cell. Now you may be wondering how 1 cell turned into trillions. Meiosis is a process where you turn 1 cell with 2 copies of itself into 4 cells with half a copy of itself. For women, these cells with half a copy are called egg cells, and for men, they're called sperm cells. When these sperm and egg cells combine, half a copy plus half a copy equals 1 full copy of a cell. Mitosis is a process where cells replicate themselves by having 1 copy of each chromosome and duplicating it. First, cells start off with 1 chromosome and duplicate it by using resources we consume. The chromosomes are pulled apart, and we see the cells splitting and pinching into 2. Lastly, the cell splits into 2, starting the whole process all over again. Repeat this cycle 40 times, and you have 1.1 trillion cells. Well, now that you know the basics of genetics, thank you so much for watching this video, and stay curious.